today we are making the economy quilt block. So this is a square and a square and a square. So for this tutorial we're going to be making a 6-inch block. For the example I have a 9-inch and I also have a 12-inch. Now if you'd like to make the different sizes, I have all of the measurements that you'll need on my printable, so go ahead and grab that. But you'll see on this 12-inch block I have a 6-inch inside of the 12-inch, so that makes it kind of cool. It just builds on itself over and over. But for this block we're going to need 5 different pieces of fabric to start with. So this is, like I said, a 6-inch block that we're showing for the example. This center piece, this is going to be the middle. This needs to be 3.5 inches. And then we have 2 squares of fabric. These are also 3.5 inches. Now this doesn't always translate to be the same depending on the size, but for a 6-inch block it is the same as the center. And then we will also need 2 squares that are 4.5 inches. So we'll go ahead and grab those. That's what we need. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the centerpiece, we leave alone. We don't do anything with that yet as far as cutting it. We're going to take our other pieces of fabric and we're going to just cut them diagonally from corner to corner. So I've just got my little straight edge ruler here and I'm just lining it up from corner to corner, and I will just slice it right in half. And we will do that with all of these surrounding pieces. So everything besides the center square, we will do the same thing. Okay, so we will set aside those larger squares and 2 of the smaller triangles, I guess. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our square and we're going to take one of the triangles. We will place them right sides together, just like this. So I like to do it on this side, and you can see how much of the triangle is poking off of each side, and try to get it centered as much as possible. Now these triangles are just slightly oversized, so we can trim up the blocks as we go so that everything lines up perfectly. But it is good to just eyeball that and get it as close as possible. So we will go to the sewing machine and we will sew this along here, and we will repeat the process with the other triangle. So they'll just be like, it's easier to see on the front side, but I do like to sew on the other side. But this is how we'll line them up. We will sew along here and we will sew along here, and then we'll come back. All right, so we have got those sewn. So the next thing we're going to be doing is we'll just grab our ironing mat here, and we're gonna just press these open. So just lift up that triangle and press it open, and we'll repeat on the other side. Okay, and then you can see we have these little wonky tails on here, so we're going to want to get rid of those. So let's just grab our straight edge, and I'm just going to line it up along the edge of the square, and then we will just cut the 2 little tails off. Oh, I didn't catch that one. I think I need a new blade. Then we'll just flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. Just like that. Okay, so then the next thing, we'll just take our 2 remaining squares of fabric and we'll just place them just on the other sides of the square that we have not done yet. Just like this. And we will go ahead back to the sewing machine and we will stitch right here and right here. All right, so there we have our piece sewn together, and we will just open this up again. Just lift the triangle and press it open. And then lift the triangle and press it open. Okay, so next we need to trim up this block. So this block needs to be at 4 3/4 of an inch. So we'll just take a ruler here, a quilting ruler. we want the corners of the square to line up with the 1/4 inch marking, so that when we sew to it with a 1/4 inch seam, the point will line up right on the edge right here. So that's what we're going for, and the size should be 4 3/4, but that's what I'm kind of looking at these as I'm lining it up to make sure that there's a 1/4 inch on these sides before I cut it off. So that looks just about right there. So we'll trim this side, just like that. And then we'll flip it over, and then we'll just line it up. It should line up with the 4 3/4 markings. But then you can just double check that you have that 1/4 inch, but it should just line up just right. Okay, so there we have our center square in a square, and then we'll just add to that. So we'll just grab 2 of our larger triangles, and we will just repeat the same thing we did before. Put 1 on each side, center them as best as possible, and then we will stitch along here and along here. All right, so we have that sewn together, and we will just repeat the same thing as the inner square. Just press open the triangles. Just like that. And then we will trim off these tails, and this ruler is just long enough to do it. So again, we're lining up the edge of the ruler along the square and trimming off those little tails. Okay, so then the last step, well, not the last step, there's one more step, but the last stitching we need to do is just along here. We'll place these 2 triangles, center them, and we will just stitch along here and along here. Okay, we will just give this one last press. Just get those triangles pressed up. And then the last thing we need to do is just trim up this square. So this little mat is from the dollar store, super cute, but it's not quite big enough, but it should work here. So this square needs to be 6.5 inches. So we're just lining up these corners with a 1/4 inch marking along the ruler, and just kind of checking all the corners and making sure that they're all lined up, and then we will cut along. This ruler is 6.5 inches, so that makes it handy for this one. Get right to the edge here. I'll have to go like this. Okay, I'll trim that little one off too. The ruler is handy for videos because it's small, but it's just a tad too small. So we'll just take this. This one should be a little easier, at least this side. We'll just line up the edge of the ruler with the side, since it is a 6.5 inch ruler. And then I'm just going to move, since the mat is a little small, I'm just going to move it just so that I get it all the way across in one go. So that is how you make the economy quilt block. So like I said, this is the 6-inch size that we just made for the tutorial. If you'd like a bigger size, we have a 9-inch or a 12-inch that are both in the printable. So go ahead and grab that if you'd like to make a larger size.